Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcine Mitchell, and I'm the Senior Vice President for Climate Change at WWF. And I'd like to welcome you to this event sponsored by America is All In. All in this together, a clean energy transition through municipal, state, and federal partnerships. I'm so happy to see so many people in the room and the energy. Here we are at the end of the day, and I feel like it's almost like 8 a.m. with all these folks being really interested and excited to hear from our incredible speakers that we have today. So this event will showcase climate and clean energy commitments and programs from the U.S. Department of Energy aimed at meeting our U.S. NDC. And as you all know, the Biden administration has put out a very ambitious NDC, which we all must work together to support and make sure that we actually achieve this NDC. And this is through support for the ground projects in the states and localities around the country. DOE leadership will recognize the critical role that these subnational leaders have played over the last several years. As you know, all of us together in this room, we have always been in, we have never given up, and we are still in, and now America is all in, along with the Biden administration and the DOE. Our subnational leaders have played over the last several years announcements that the DOE will continue to support us. Governors and mayors from America is All In will join in this conversation to highlight how DOE programs have helped their communities, what else is needed to reach local targets, and how best to partner with DOE and the federal government to collectively address the climate crisis with a whole of society approach. I am so pleased to have on the stage with me David Turk, who is the Deputy Secretary of Energy of the Department of Energy, Governor Jay Inslee from Washington State, and Mayor Eric Simmons of Greensville, Mississippi. We'll also afterwards have a second panel with Governor Kate Brown from Oregon, Governor David E.J. from Hawaii, and Governor Pritzker from Illinois, and Mayor Belinda Constant from Gretna, Louisiana. But why don't we start with David Turk, who is our Deputy Secretary of Energy from the Department of Energy.
Well, let me start with a huge thanks. Thanks, Marcine. Thanks to my fellow panelists here in the first panel, Governor Inslee, who's just been such a phenomenal leader, not only in his state, not only in his country, but globally for many, many years on these issues. And we owe a lot of the success, frankly, that we're having in this administration and in the Congress to the governor's leadership. So thank you, Governor. Thank you to our mayor, Mayor Simmons, for being up on this panel. And just a shout out for our next group who's coming up, Governor Pritzker, who's my home state governor. I'm from Illinois, so it's always great. And I feel incredible pride, Governor, that you stood up and stepped up and ran for governor and doing such an outstanding job, including the revolutionary legislation that you passed in Illinois on the climate front and a lot of other issues as well. And Governor Brown, you're doing such phenomenal work out in Oregon. My brother lives in Oregon, as I was just telling the governor, so partial constituent, at least from my brother's side. And Governor Ige, I'd like to live in Hawaii whenever you'll have me, although the real estate prices, I think, have gone up so high in Hawaii because everyone wants to live there during this time of COVID where people are living flexibly. And Mayor Constant as well, thank you for your outstanding leadership. And I want to put in a special thanks for those who've been involved in the America is All In the U.S. Climate Alliance. I remember personally going to the first climate conference. I've gone to several climate conferences when the previous administration took over. And I remember the cheers as the America is All In Alliance, governors, mayors, leaders from the private industry, financiers, sent a strong message, a compelling message, an inspiring message as a U.S. citizen and as an American that the U.S. was still in, not just in, but leading and providing momentum, providing real-world momentum in terms of what was actually happening in our country and how that leadership, and I can tell you having lived in abroad for the last 4 or 5 years, how that leadership, how that continued leadership really resonated throughout the world. So for all those involved in the America is In, the America is still in and the America is in now, effort, just a huge, huge thanks for the outstanding leadership going forward on those lines. What I'd like to do today, and hopefully this is a useful scene setter, is just put on the table for your consideration 4 critical ingredients for being successful right now. And a presupposition to those 4 critical ingredients is an assumption I think we all probably share in this room. If not, we can hopefully get into that in the back and forth in the discussion, is that this is not a status quo time. This is not a normal time. This is not a time where we can just sleepwalk through our lives and just go forward as if nothing was happening. This is an extraordinary challenge. Climate science is telling us the challenge that we face. We see it around us every day. But this is a huge, huge opportunity, a historic opportunity along those lines. So these 4 key principles, key ingredients, if you will, really are meant to try to really grab that opportunity, to really take full advantage of that window that we have in front of us. So the first key ingredient, maybe this is the easiest, maybe they get harder as they go along. First key ingredient is goal setting. I think it is important to have goals. It is important for the U.S., for President Biden to say we are going to go to net zero by 2050. We're going to reduce our emissions by over 50% by 2030. We're going to have clean electricity by 2035. We've seen other world leaders step up. We've seen the private sector step up and do that goal setting. That goal setting is incredibly important. It's a market signal. It has inspiring quality to it that I think is incredibly important. So I think we're in a good place from the U.S., certainly from the federal government, certainly from this administration on that end. And the governors here have set incredibly ambitious goals in your states. And that was really a model for the federal goal as well. Second key ingredient is recognizing that while we've had remarkable success with some clean energy technologies, we need to innovate even further. We need to keep innovating. One analysis I did when I worked with the International Energy Agency was look at 46 different technologies across the clean energy spectrum. And we asked our analysts which ones of those 46 are actually doing their share in terms of deployment numbers, in terms of cost reductions, to get us to do their share to get us to the Paris Agreement targets that we all agreed to in Paris. The number, which may be surprising, it's a little discouraging, it's certainly sobering, is only 6 of the 46 technologies, solar PV is one of those, wind is another one of those, are doing their share to get us to where we need to get to net zero throughout our economy in a very, very short few decade period of time. That signals to me that we need to innovate, innovate, innovate like never before. We need to focus our resources. We need to work from the government side, federal government side, state government side, and really leverage that. What we've done at the Department of Energy is a series of what we're calling Earth shots. This is the decisive decade for innovation. It needs to be the decisive decade for innovation across the full range of technologies we need to, for industry, for heavy-duty freight, for those hard-to-decarbonize sectors. We've launched now 3 of those Earth shots, including one that Secretary Granholm launched last week. We've done it on hydrogen to reduce costs down to $1 per kilogram on hydrogen. That is an incredibly ambitious target for those who know the hydrogen market, electrolysis right now. Long duration storage, over 10 hours, we slashed those costs. We're looking to slash those costs by 90%. 90%. So these are not just nibbling around the margins. This is really leveraging our technology. And then the carbon negative shot, working on those carbon negative technologies that are going to be important no matter how well we do on near-term mitigation. We're going to need a suite of carbon negative technologies. This is a big deal. We're spending $1 billion a year on the long duration storage, just to give you a sense of the volume of what we're doing from the federal government side of things, working with our 17 national labs, 2 of which are in Illinois, 1 of which is in Washington. We look to have some and have great partnerships with Oregon and Hawaii as well, leveraging and reducing those costs. And the lower the costs go, the more we'll be able to deploy these technologies at scale. Third key point, and this is Secretary Granholm, who I work for, former governor of Michigan, deploy, deploy, deploy. We just need to deploy. We need to deploy those clean energy technologies that we do have right now, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's EVs, all the technologies we have now with a scale and pace that we've never done before in our country or frankly any other country around the world. The biggest good news on that is Congress. Congress has stepped up. We've passed a bipartisan infrastructure deal. People can clap if they want. We've got another piece of legislation that I am very confident will get passed And that will mean $800 billion that the U.S. government will be spending on climate and clean energy related funding. $800 billion, even for a government like the U.S., that is a large amount of money to be putting in tax credits, $300 billion in various tax credits, including manufacturing credits, so that we can manufacture these products here in the U.S. on grid, on demonstration, on hydrogen, you name it. There's huge amounts of additional funding. For the Department of Energy, it's $103 billion additional dollars that we get to be a better partner with states, with local governments, with the private sector. That is transformational, and it's real world, and it's near term. We hope other governments equally step up to the table with this kind of leverage on the deployment side of things. So that's the third piece. And then the fourth piece, which I think may be the easiest to say and the hardest to do in the real world, is partnerships. And not just paper partnerships, not the kind of partnership you put out in a press release and you feel good about it, but real partnerships. Public partnerships, federal government, states, local governments, public-private partnerships with entrepreneurs, with companies, with big companies, with small companies, all the kinds of things, Governor Pritzker, you worked on previous to your life as governor. I know there's a catchphrase, I think, that the America is all in, all of society. It has to be all of society. It really has to be a partnership. What I've been calling it is an extreme partnership. It needs to be a deep partnership. It needs to be a back and forth partnership, a really meaningful partnership on that side of things. That's what we're going to hope to do with that $103 billion and all else on innovation, on deployment that we can do from the Department of Energy side of things. And if we're successful in that partnership, we can be successful on climate change. We can be successful on the jobs. We can be successful on the community revitalization around our country. That's what the President has put in front of us. That what Secretary Granholm has laid out for us, and really looking to be that partner. So thanks in advance for all the phenomenal leadership in this room and all the partnership going forward.
Thank you so much, David. That was really great. Lot of information there. Really exciting to hear about some of these long shots, these moon shots that the government is working on. Very exciting stuff. And we do need, as you said, we really need to work on our technology. We're going to do what we can do now, what we have to do today. We need to deploy that action, but we have to invest in the future. So thank you for bringing that up. So I'd like now to turn to Governor Jay Inslee of Washington State for a few words.
Well, thank you. First, I have an announcement that I'm very excited to announce that David and I had agreed that $103 billion, he has decided to distribute very fairly, and that means half for Washington State and half for the rest of the nation. So I appreciate your commitment in that regard. I just want to express such a delight to be here, and I'll tell you why. I know this has been a frustrating journey in the fight against climate change. I've been at it for a couple decades. But you got to celebrate some successes. I want to celebrate one success. The last COP we went to was in Bonn, when we had a previous president actually sent people there, which took a lot of courage, I thought, to send people. And Kate Brown and I, to get a word in edgewise, went and broke up their press conference. And we took over their press conference and really stated what America was going to do, because we wanted to assure the world that America would be back. And here we are with a great energy leader. We got a president who got a great secretary. America is back. And our message and product showed that. So I'm delighted. I'm really just excited to be here with everybody working on this. A few comments about where we are right now. This innovation agenda of the Department of Energy that the President has championed is so necessary to achieve these ends. Our R&D budget has been so pathetic, given the nature of this risk, that it has been an embarrassment for decades. And I'll give you just an example of the scope of what I mean. 7 years ago, I looked at the DoD budget. We spent more on the R&D budget for one Jeep than we did in the entire clean energy R&D budget for the United States of America, when we have this sword of Damocles of climate change hanging over our heads. Thank goodness we have a president who's now putting real money into the R&D, And we intend to be great partners with the federal government in this regard. We just did a groundbreaking for a new energy research facility in partnership, meaning we put some state money into it as well. And I think we need to step up and not just be handmaidens to the federal government. We got to put our money into these efforts to be a real partnership. Partnership means we put someone in the pool as well. And we're happy to do that in Washington State, and I know it's going to succeed. Now, just a quick comment from Washington State. We're having success in our state, as Kate and JB have had as well. We've got our commitment to, carbon neutral grid by 2030, zero carbon by 2045. We got a great electrification program. We got the best efficiency standards. But the thing I'm proudest of is in the last session of our legislature, we got through a very aggressive cap and invest bill, which is an economy-wide price signal and a reinvest in our community. And the thing I'm proudest of it is it has a environmental justice component that really is the best in the nation. 40% of all the investment goes back to overburdened communities and BIPOC communities. 10% goes to indigenous communities. I think it's a template we learned from California, and I hope we're going to get more states to join you so we can make that sing. So let's have at it. And how about a round of applause for Joe Biden? He's doing a fantastic job on this, in my opinion.
So thank you, Governor Inslee. Governor Inslee was being modest when he said, I've been working on this for a couple decades. He not only has been working on it, he's been a real leader on this. We were talking earlier, and his fellow governors were saying, this is the man that they've been following for the last couple decades. So we really thank you on that. Let's give another hand of applause. Absolutely. So turning now to the city level. So as we know that 70% of GHG emissions occur in cities, and so our cities have a huge role to play in addressing this issue. And we are very lucky today to have Mayor Eric Simmons Greenville of Greenville in Mississippi. So welcome, and please give us a few words.
Thank all of you all for joining us here for this very important seminar at a very important moment and a very important time in our country, in our world. And I want to first begin by thanking the governors, the state leaders, our national leader, our President Biden and his administration for understanding and appreciating where we are. And it's just great to have an administration who is climate focused. But we couldn't do what we're doing here today without the wonderful staff of America's All In and the wonderful staff at WWF. Let's give them a round of applause for what they do day in and day out to get us all together to talk about this very important issue. You know, partnership, like this Secretary said, is exactly what we need. My name is Eric Simmons. I'm the mayor of Greenville, Mississippi, and I represent and the co-chair of a group of mayors along the Mississippi River Corridor called the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. And we are in a prime position, Governor, to lead the climate work insofar as the Mississippi River Basin produces about 40% of the world's agricultural products. And 1 in 12 folks around the world consume commodities from the Mississippi River Basin. So it's very critical in that point. It's about 101 mayors, and so what we're doing is leading from the municipal level to say we need to begin to address climate change, climate impacts, and climate risks. I got elected as mayor in 2016, and in 2 months after being elected, we had to do a national civil emergency, then followed by a state emergency, and then a national emergency regarding the flood of 2016. But to just show you the impacts of climate just in Greenville, Mississippi, with a 38.6% poverty rate. In 2011, when I was on the council, we had the flood of 2011, and we had municipal damages about $400,000. In 2016, we had municipal damages of $600,000. In 2019, the great flood of 2019, all of us dealt with it on the River Valley, we were nearing $4 million and then COVID hit us, and we're still counting at $6 million. Now, it's very hard for a community with a 38.6% poverty rate, but we got to address it. And so in joining MRCTI, we're working on a number of innovative projects because Greenville alone cannot fight this climate issue. Mississippi alone can't fight this climate issue. America alone cannot fight this climate issue. It's a world issue. When there's a global issue, it requires global response. And so the MRCTI has worked with a group of mayors, 101 mayors, and we've done a number of great things to look at nature-based infrastructure solutions. We work with 2 Degrees Adapt, Cargill, One Architect, and a lot of global partners to look at about 60,000 acres on the Mississippi River Valley to deploy nature-based infrastructure. So what we're going to do, Governor, is we're going to sequester 480,000 tons of carbon on the Mississippi River Valley. Now, folks in Greenville don't talk about climate change. They just want to go get their grocery. They just want to flush their toilets. But they understand climate change, and they understand it because when we have the 2 high water events of the year, and the water goes up, and the water table comes up, Governor, and we can't even drill or do anything because it's 3 feet, they can't flush their toilets. They understand that. The businesses understand it because when the water goes up and they got to close down, they can't make products. So they understand it in that way. So we got to make sure we're educating the folks in the Delta, the folks around the country, what climate change is, but put it in terms that they all can understand. We have to do that. We also have worked with Congress, and Mayor Constant will talk about the work with the bipartisan deal. We have a $500 million revolving resilience loan fund that is in the bill that the president will sign. The MRCTI advocated along with some other organizations, but it's also going to make cities and towns bounce back when there is disaster. Not only fires, floods, but also droughts as well. And so that is in the bill that will be passed. I want to close with another piece of legislation, the SMART Act. Congressman Benny G. Thompson, the chair of Homeland Security, is my chairman, and he's my congressman. He introduced the SMART Safeguard Mississippi Together Act, which is the SMART Act, and what it's going to do is put about $2.5 billion concurrently run and managed by EPA and the Department of Interior, and create a home office in Washington so we can be right there in Congress face talking about the Mississippi River Basin, but also it's going to put that money in to help those struggling industries along the Mississippi River, so when you have those disasters, they can bounce back. It's a job economic project, but it's also a way that we can create economic development projects along the Mississippi River. I'll close by saying this. There was a subnational who was on his way to COP26 in 2021. And as he was getting ready to prepare his remarks, his 6-year-old daughter kept coming in, disturbing him. And he was like, I need to give her a 2021-piece puzzle of the world. And that's going to keep her busy for the next 8 hours as I continue to write my talking points. In less than 6 minutes, his daughter came back in the room. And when she came back in the room, he said, but how did you put a 2021-piece puzzle of the world together that quickly? And we know we see that globe as we walk in. Her response was, it was simple, Daddy. I just, on the other side of the world, was a picture of a man. And once the man is right, the world is right. So when we talk about multi-level action, when we talk about partnerships and cooperation, when we talk about municipal governments working with state governments in America, and also with other countries around the world, to get and address climate, the man has to be right for us to address this world issue of climate. Thank all of you all for your time.
Great, Mayor Simmons, and thank you so much for making it very real to all of us what climate change means to the everyday citizen and even to the little 6-year-old. When the man is right, the world is right. I love that. So thank the panel. Can I get one round of applause for our panel here? Thank you very, very, very much. Okay. Great. So we're going to have a new panel coming up. So please go take a seat. There is a mic on the floor.
We have the mayor coming up. We have another mayor coming up.
That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever order you want to be in. Oh, is there one more? Oh, is that what you're saying? One
Yes.
more seat? Oh,
Yes.
thank
yes.
you.
Sorry.
I was being obtuse. Okay, thank you.
I did. Girl, boy, girl. No, I'm sitting next to you. Girl, boy, girl, boy.
Okay, great. We're short what?
We can share.
We can share. We can share.
If you give us yes, we'll share.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So I would like to introduce our next panel. We have right to my left, Governor Jay. Oh no, sorry. We moved down. David Ige from Hawaii, Governor Kate Brown from Oregon, Governor Jay Pritzker from Illinois, and Mayor Belinda Constant from Gretna, Louisiana. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. So we're going to mix it up a little bit and have a kind of a conversation, and then and hopefully get some questions out for everybody, and really learn from each other. So I will start with you, Governor. Tell us a little bit about, Mayor Simmons left us with such an inspirational piece about, what the citizens of his area were interested in and cared about in terms of climate. And I know Hawaii is at the very front end in terms of both the, mitigation, but also resilience. I mean, you have a lot of impacts. So tell us something a little bit about what you're finding that your citizens are caring about in climate, and what kind of exciting things that you are really doing to address those concerns.
Thank you so much. It really is exciting to be here. I echo what Governor Inslee talked about. It is such a sea change since President Biden was elected, and clearly for the first time in many years, we have an administration that shares our values and our commitment to tackling climate change. This morning in his session, President Obama talked about island communities really being the canaries in the coal mines. And we see the impacts of climate change in a real and intense way every day. Shortly after becoming governor in our hurricane season in 2015, Hawaii had 3 Category 5 hurricanes surrounding our islands, threatening to impact virtually every island in the community. We've had severe coral bleaching events. We've had rain bombs that have dumped 52 inches, the record U.S. rainfall in a 24-hour period. So we see how intense and real the impacts of climate change have been. So we have been on the front lines of climate change, really, and committing to 100% clean renewable energy for electricity. And in 2018, we adopted a net negative goal, because we do know that net zero is not good enough. We really need to commit to net negative. And I do think, and I think all of us have worked together to implement strategies to make the transition happen quicker. And I just really want to talk a little bit about our commitment to nature-based mechanisms and projects that really are looking to sequester more carbon than we emit. It really is the basis for our net negative goal. And it really is about two things. One is nature-based mechanisms of capturing carbon. Hawaii committed to protect or preserve or replant 100 million trees in the 1 trillion tree initiative, so that we can begin to take carbon out of our communities. And we are definitely committed to working with the Department of Energy on technology-based efforts to capture carbon and think about how we can accelerate our commitment and move to net zero. I mean, I think, I'm proud of Hawaii as a community. We all get it. In an island state, we understand that what we do impacts our friends and neighbors, and we are all committed to taking the action necessary to fight climate change. And really, we are committed to saving the planet because we all know that we can only be successful together, and that when we work together, we can do and accomplish great things. So thank you so much. We're really excited to be part of the All In Alliance. I really want to thank all of you for your commitment to ensuring that supernatural national voices can continue to be heard.
Great. Oh, thank you so much. Well, you know, coming from WWF, a conservation organization, hearing about, natural climate solutions, nature-based solutions is music to my ears. Part of this addressing climate change is beyond just addressing climate change. It's really addressing our life support systems, which is Mother Nature, which is Earth, which is our ecosystem. So to hear that is incorporated in your plans is very exhilarating, and thank you for that. I want to turn to Governor Brown. So I noticed, Governor Brown, when David Turk was talking about the bipartisan bill, the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better bill, you were clapping very hard. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts about these two bills and how you think that they will, impact what's happening at the state level.
Well, thank you, and I'm also delighted to be here and just love this alliance for its progressive work and efforts to literally be a game changer on the ground. In terms of the two bills, as everyone knows, the bipartisan infrastructure package passed last week. This, too, is a paradigm shift in terms of our ability to invest in climate change infrastructure in our states. Oregon, like all of the coastal states, maybe not quite like Hawaii, but we are certainly at the forefront of climate change, and for our state, it's truly a hammer hitting us in the head. In the last year, we had the historic wildfire, 4,000 homes lost, burned to the ground. We had an ice storm event, 1 million Oregonians without power, some for 2 weeks. And most recently, a heat dome event. 3 days of temperatures of 116 degrees in our major city, 46 degrees Celsius. We lost over 90 Oregonians in that heat dome event. So we are on the front lines as well. And that's why it's imperative that we move quickly and go as far as we can at the state level. And the bipartisan infrastructure package will help significantly. Oregon passed legislation to move us to 100% clean electricity by 2040, building on the work we did to eliminate coal-generated electricity in our state in 2016. I also issued an executive order to cap carbon emissions. We can take these dollars and invest and expand access to EV infrastructure, for example. The resources will be phenomenal. And we can ensure that there is EV infrastructure not only in our urban communities, but our low-income communities throughout the state, our communities of color, and our rural communities. And we know that these communities, our communities of color, our low-income communities, and our rural communities are disproportionately impacted by climate change. So these investments will be significant. Not only can we use these dollars to move us forward, but we can use these dollars to repair the damage that was caused by building freeways through our Black communities, through our brown communities, through our indigenous communities. And that's how we are going to use these dollars to help repair, but also help us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great. Turning to Governor Pritzker, you hail from the great state of Illinois. And again, our Deputy Secretary of Energy, David Turk, talked about on the federal government level, they were excited about some of these long shots, investing in manufacturing, new technology, different ways of approaching. So tell me some of the ideas or the projects that are coming from Illinois that most excite you in terms of this energy transition.
Well, let me begin first by saying what a terrific coalition this is, what a terrific effort by the Department of Energy and the United States to really renew our commitment here on the world stage fighting climate change. I'm very proud to be from a state that has demonstrated really over the last year and a half that we intend to become a leader in the nation as well as in the world. Many of you know we have the 5th largest economy in the United States. It would be the 21st largest economy in the world if we were a separate nation. We're an industrial, I'm bragging, yes. We're 3 times the size of Oregon, you know. And so a commitment from a large state like Illinois, I think, is impactful. And look, we're coming from behind, to be frank with you. We're a state that is, known to be in the Rust Belt, known to be an industrial state, and we, in previous years, really didn't have a climate policy. And so over the last year and a half, working with the General Assembly in my state, we passed really one of the most progressive, best climate action plans in the country, and we're now engaged in implementing that. I think importantly, we set hard targets and hard goals. So by 2045, by 2030, we will have done away with private coal energy production, and by 2045, natural gas and coal entirely eliminated. We will be, we're aiming to be a 100% carbon-free by 2045, but that is in the legislation. So that is law. We're now implementing toward that. Importantly, we were able to get that passed in part because of our commitment to a focus on equity. We are, I don't know if any of you know that Illinois is most reflective demographically of the entire United States. And so for us to get this done and to do it in a way that focuses on Black and brown communities that have been so disproportionately impacted by the injustice of the way climate has been treated over the years, and to now be really reversing that. I'm very proud of that. That's something that we came together. We had, as I said in a previous panel, we had a little bit of support from folks in the other party, but we had significant, nearly unanimous support from people in my party, and we're a Democratic state. And so proud to have gotten that done. Now, we have so much work to do, I have to say. First, back 2 years ago, we passed a $45 billion infrastructure package in Illinois. It's the largest in the nation. We didn't know there would be a federal infrastructure package. We just knew we had to build in Illinois and rebuild. And so, we went after that in 2019. Some of what we passed is focused on creating resiliency in our infrastructure because of climate change. And we need an awful lot of that. Since becoming governor, I have to say, almost immediately we had a polar vortex when I became governor a month in, temperatures that we hadn't seen, at least that anybody could remember in Illinois as a result of the polar vortex. We had floods. These were considered 100-year floods. And now we've had them virtually every, I think we've had 3 major flooding, circumstances. About a third of Illinois has been under an emergency declaration during the course of my tenure, and I've only been in office for less than 3 years. I mean, we have a lot to work on. I think there's a recognition throughout the state that we need to be vaulting ahead. I think the word I heard that I like most is leapfrogging, because we just have so much to do. And that's why the bill that we passed 2 months ago, our climate bill, is so significant. I want to just finish with about a week and a half ago, just before I got on a plane to come to the UK, we passed in our legislature a monumental electric vehicle incentives bill for our state. So we intend to be a leader in the manufacture of electric vehicles and in the deployment of charging stations, the deployment of vehicles on the road, and the changeover of school buses and trucks and so on in Illinois. And so I'm pleased we have an incentive package that invites business to be a part of that transition, and we intend to be a leader in electric vehicle manufacturing and deployment.
Thank you so much. So, what I'm hearing again and again from our governors is that climate change is here. I mean, we're hearing it from Hawaii. We're hearing it, from Illinois. We're hearing it from Oregon. That we are seeing that climate change is here. And what's heartening, though, is that at the state level, our governors are taking action, right? They're not waiting. They are taking action, and they're moving ahead. So I thank you for that. But let's take that as a key, note that this is not something in the future that is here. It is here today. So I'd like to turn to Mayor Constant, who is hailing from southern Louisiana, and I think you share some of the same, topography with the Mississippi River as Mayor Simmons. And so I'd love to hear from you how climate is impacting you, and what some of the, the key things that the federal government can help you with, and some of the key things that you guys are doing right now to address it on your own.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And yes, Mayor Simmons and I actually share responsibilities with MRCTI that he spoke a bit earlier. But before I talk about MRCTI, I want to talk about the municipal government that I represent, and listening to the governor just now saying he's bringing up the rear, or basically positioning in the maybe lower end of the list of places. Believe me, Louisiana is bringing up the rear, okay? We are here. We are here, and I am here as a small municipality in the state of Louisiana, and we come from a place that is so far behind the climate conversation, just by virtue of industry, just by virtue of education, and by virtue of the life that we live in Southeast Louisiana. We are educating people today about green infrastructure. We're educating people as we recover from these monster storms that in 2005 began with Katrina and changed people's mindset about hurricane season. Which is something that they are, go into PSD mode in June. So this is something that we had to take baby bites from. And we have to, as a small municipality in Jefferson Parish, which is the largest parish in Louisiana, the conversation has to get very personal, and it has to get very real at the parish level in order for the municipalities to be successful. And so when I was elected in 2005, having lived through Katrina after 7 weeks of being sworn in, and looking around and seeing the devastation to a community that changed the state of Louisiana back in 2005, to sit down with people, it had to get real. And we already live in a bowl under sea level. Water and drainage and sewer is critical infrastructure that is over 100 years old, overburdened, falling apart in some places. So we had to go back to the basic realities of life and quality of life issues before we could ever get to the clean air conversation. But we've made tremendous headway since 2005. We're being hailed, Louisiana's Gretna, small municipality, is being hailed as a city of choice statewide, because we began the green infrastructure conversation only about 9 years ago, which in relation to what I'm hearing here is really so different. But it's what we had to do. We can't, give steak to the baby. We had to feed our constituency the baby food that they could understand. We had to educate them on why it was so important to deal with green infrastructure as opposed to pipe and concrete. That was huge. We got such kickback from that, such, feedback, negative feedback, because it's more expensive. It's more expensive to maintain. So just in the really elementary conversation of, climate change, we had to go back really, really simplistic conversations for people to understand. But today, Regional Planning Commission, and I keep looking at my phone because I've got something that I've had to say about, we have Johnny Stone Oil Company, which is the largest distributor of diesel fuel on the Mississippi River. They have received an award. Now, this is just in the last 5 years with the Regional Planning Authority that we are a part of in our area. The commission said that the fleet's efforts set 2 new regional records, reduced traditional fuel consumption by the equivalent of over 4.3 million gasoline gallons, and prevented more than 30,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions from being pumped into the air in the Mississippi River corridor. This is the air quality equivalent of taking 6,521 typical passenger vehicles off the road. This was something initiated by the City of Gretna and the Regional Planning Authority. Johnny Stone was the winner of that award, something we're truly proud of. Zatarans, another example, a global entity. They market themselves with the New Orleans Jazz logo, but a huge manufacturing and distribution component resides in Gretna, Louisiana. And they're in the mayor's office with me having conversations about what they can do for this municipality in order to get into the green plan that the city has put out there 5 years ago. We've created a UDC where people have to build back better. You can't just build like you did in 1955 and expect to withstand the monster storms such as Katrina, Gustav, Ida, and Zeta. So at the municipal level, kind of like the mayor said earlier, it has to be real, it has to be personal, and by putting yourself out there and inviting them into the city hall to talk about what life needs to be like so that we can continue to offer quality of life infrastructure, we've got to have these hard conversations.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to be wrapping up, but I'd like to do one lightning round. America's All In is about coalitions. It's about partnerships. It's about working together. It's about whole of society. We can't do this alone. So can I ask just to the panel, whoever wants to go can go first, can you tell us about one of your partnerships or your most valuable partnerships that you've built on climate? How did you work with your peers or the federal governments or other communities or even your municipalities to make movement on climate? So everyone, just a really quick 1 or 2 minute things, but give us the highlight that we can grasp onto here.
Okay, I'll talk fast. It's true that working together can achieve much more than each one of us working alone. So 3 I want to highlight. Number 1, our partnership with our federal government, currently the Biden administration. But 30 years ago, our federal government invested in light rail in the Portland metropolitan area, electric run, right? It's mass transit, it works, it moves people, and it's clean. This is the kind of thing that needs to happen, and with Biden in the White House, we can make sure that this efforts will continue to move the country forward. Second, our regional partnerships, the Pacific Coast Collaborative, the West Coast states, including British Columbia, all working together to tackle climate change. But in addition to that, Western Governors Association, under my leadership last year, developed an MOU regarding electrifying the West, and how do we make sure that the states in the Western region have consistent and reliable EV charging so that folks can drive from Nevada, so to speak, up to Washington or down to California and not have to worry about range anxiety. So that's the kind of work that needs to keep happening. And then the last one I'll just highlight, and it's truly a private partnership. Portland General Electric partnered with Daimler. They're building electric trucks. PGE obviously providing the electricity, but we have the first public commercial charging station on the West Coast, the I-5 corridor. We certainly hope that President Biden will come join us to see this project, but we are really, really excited, and it's all happening through partnerships and collaboration. Whew, there.
If I could just jump in, I would like to, I really just need to say MRCTI. Let me tell you, in Louisiana, over 200 municipal governments are under 10,000 people. The only way to get to the federal level for us as small municipal governments is to be in collaboration with an organization like MRCTI, 100 mayors, lots of small municipal governments on the river, all focused on the same thing. And that's why collaboration is really, that is where it needs to be. And in small government, we recognize that. So I just have to say, MRCTI does an incredible job and has given me a voice. Given me a voice in DC, it's given me appointments with FEMA, the people that have the money, because for small government, it doesn't come to you. I have to beg for it at the state level, have to beg for it at the parish level or county level for some of you. This is, and that's why we're just scratching the surface, trying to do what we need to do for our constituency. But you take MRCTI and the millions of people that we touch, then our voice is very different. So collaboration is critical, and it's the key to success of this moving forward.
I'll just quickly name two kind of, collaborations, partnerships. One is, as Governor Brown was saying, working with the surrounding states to make sure that we're building the infrastructure that's necessary for an EV future. And that's vitally important in the Midwest. We have a lot of territory that people are covering. Illinois is a transportation hub, a supply chain hub of the nation. We have all 7 railroads. We have 18,000 miles of highways in Illinois, and we need people to be able to pass through Illinois state to state and be able to charge their EVs. So that is an important thing to work, collaborate with surrounding states. But I do also just want to say that in order to pass the climate bill that we passed, we had to work for 18 months, almost 2 years, getting working group after working group after working group with manufacturers in the room, and and every organization, solar, wind. We had our fossil fuel companies. We had our ComEd and Exelon, who own our nuclear fleet. Exelon does. We have the largest nuclear fleet in the nation, in Illinois, and which is hugely important for getting to zero carbon. But the collaboration that had to happen to get the climate bill that we got, which is truly nation leading, and I'm very proud of what we got done. But it was hard, but everybody gave a little. We had unions on one side of some things and environmentalists on the other side of some things. We had industry very concerned about some things and had to bring them in. I think the collective effort was enormous. And as I said, we got some bipartisan support to get it done, and I'm pleased about that. But that is probably the heaviest lift that I can think of for anybody that's going to go forward and to get a climate plan done in a place like the center of the hub of the country, the Midwest. It was hugely difficult, and I'm very proud of the work that was done to get those partnerships and collaborations to lead to the plan that we had passed.
And all the way out in Hawaii, although you can't drive an EV to Hawaii, certainly the work that Governor Brown has done to really share information about how do we build the charging infrastructure. We all are committed to the energy transformation of transportation, and we have been working to share lessons learned to really allow us to move forward in that area. And one thing that I would like to add as a future collaboration that we're all working on, Kate Brown talked about cap and trade legislation. California and Washington State really do have the markets. Small states like Hawaii want to be able to participate in that because we do believe that Hawaii would be the best place to invest in carbon capturing, especially nature-based carbon capturing projects. And clearly creating that marketplace for cap and trade, I think, is such an important next element for all of us to engage in, because we do know we need to put a price, economic price on carbon to really accelerate the transformation. And we look forward to working with all the states, especially Western states, to try and create that market.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Governors Ige, Brown, Pritzker, and Mayor Constant. It was a great panel. I learned a lot. I felt very excited to hear some of the things that are happening on the ground and how we are moving us forward. So let's give them all a real round of applause. Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us.